You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard
foul. All right, Mike. Hot foul post-trade deadline. All-Star break is upon us. Jaylen Brown is in San Francisco getting ready to play for Team America, I guess, or however the hell they do that now. Jayson Tatum has returned to practice. And as always, I am Jim Quigley with my brother Mike, and this is Hot Foul, brought to you by the what?
Fans First Sport Network, bitch. And I'm with Nick Wright. I think the All-Star game should be blacks versus whites.
Is that something?
Yeah, he was on with Bill Simmons, and Nick Wright said to fix the All-Star game, you want these guys to play hard, have white guys play black guys.
It sounds like a Tony Maserati proposal.
It'd be mostly like European white guys, but
yeah. I did see Kevin Durant's comment about like, why are you asking me if we'll play hard when Luke is lying down at half court? You know,
if I was the reporter, I would have said because I'm not talking to Luka right now. He's in LA. You're in front of me.
I know.
You don't play hard either. Like the All-Star game's a terrible product. I won't be watching.
It's not even worth talking about.
These
Celtics are. These Celtics are worth talking about. Mike, a lot going on between Tatum, the trades, you know, how they finished the first half, what we're looking forward to in the second half. You take us away. Where do you want to start?
Well, I do. I want to start. I think whites versus blacks, the guys would play hard. I'm just saying. I think it's a good take by Nick Wright. I could see that being a thing. Where do I want to take us to start off? Well, I think we need to talk about the cost-cutting measures by the Boston Celtics here at the trade deadline. I don't think any of the players were players of consequence, which is good. Josh Minott certainly had his moments, and I hope he gets some playing time in Brooklyn. But I know, Jim, you had some thoughts on that. Not so much the guys that were moved, but more of kind of looking ahead, right, on the outlook of the team.
Well, no, look, hey. So I think a lot of the narrative, especially from Celtics Twitter and the Celtics media, that this was a good deadline. You know, they accomplished their goals with, you know, getting under the tax, which, you know, the team never explicitly said was a goal, but I guess it was the assumption that was true. And then getting a big man in here and a guy like Vucevic and improving their play at the five. So under those circumstances, sure, they did a good job. Under those circumstances, Brad Stevens deserves credit for doing what ownership wants and improving their stock at the center position with Vucevic. You know, he's obviously an upgrade over Gaza. I don't think there's any denying that. It does nothing for them long term. You know, he is not signed. I don't think we should move under the assumption that he will be signed. But we'll, you know, for this season, that helped them. The question remains, though, were there other moves to be made if they didn't have to get under the tax that could have helped them more for this season and going forward? And that's an unknown. I think that's probably true. But I can't sit here and celebrate moves that cut costs because the owners are colluding to cut costs across the league. You know, they can afford to pay this. This isn't something that they cannot afford. They can afford to pay the tax. They were out of the apron. It makes me think that when the Celtics bought this team, when the ownership group bought this team under Bill Chisholm, that there was an agreement that they would not overspend into the first, second apron or even over the tax in years where they could be penalized. The penalties don't look. How many? We've gone over this ad nauseum, but how many teams in the past have traded for a so-so player, a guy that might not even win you a playoff game, for a first-round pick, because they think that would help them win the championship? Throughout the last decade, you can throw dots all over the place and land on something on that. And now we're afraid about a frozen first-round pick 5 years from now, whatever it is. I mean, give me a break on that. They are not doing this because the owners are colluding. And it's not just the Celtics. It's across the league. So I can't. So on one hand, sure, Brad Stevens, good job for the circumstances he's in. He gets paid by the Celtics. That's what he has to do. He improved the team. He didn't really send out any real assets to cut
Yeah.
costs. Nothing besides a couple second round picks. There was nothing gained though for Holiday and Porzingis at the end besides a half season now of Vucevic.
Yeah.
That's what you got. And so we'll see. Maybe Vucevic is a missing piece that gets them to the NBA Finals, and we will have to look at this much differently. But I got to tell you, Mike, I see that kind of the Dan Greenbergs of the world acting like this is genius. This is just the owners across the league colluding to be cheap so they can get a hard cap for the next CBA. And as fans, we should not celebrate that. We should call it out at every turn that this is fucking greed. They are okay with Steve Ballmer circumventing the cap with the aspiration scandals that they won't even look into. They are okay with some of their owners being mentioned in the Epstein files, but God forbid if they paid into the second 8 consecutive years. That may cost you the ability to buy a team if you think you're going to do that. That's my theory on this, and that's gross. And so that's my 2 cents. Good for Brad Stevens. Nothing against him, but I am not going to celebrate this.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that having Vucevic over Simons is better for the team this year. I have no idea. Simons was a guy who could come in and light it up off the bench, and someone who probably would play really well with Jayson Tatum. They probably would have paired up really well. Um, so I think that still remains to be seen. I think on what I've seen on the offensive side of Vucevic is he's definitely talented, but I also think it kind of sticks with him when he's on the post and
Really,
offense.
I think he moves the ball well.
He moves the ball well, but as far as like the spacing and stuff, I think there's still a lot of work to be done as far as the pace of the offense with him on the floor. And defensively, he doesn't really offer much at all.
I love what he gives them offensively. There's some combo of Porzingis and Al Horford in there. The ability to pass the ball, his ability to find mismatches on the post. I don't remember the Celtics posting up at all outside of Jaylen Brown this year until Vucevic got here.
Right.
Um, I think he adds an element to this, especially when Tatum comes, that is more
Can I
valuable than
can I
Simons.
say something though?
Yeah.
He's a bit soft, and I think we saw that against the Knicks when he had to play against real big guys. He kind of wasn't a factor at all. And so I want to see what he is against Orlando when they're real physical. I want to see
Oh,
how he
he's
plays.
not a perfect player. Like I get what you're saying, but I think he's a significant upgrade over what they had for this season. He's not a rim protector. He's not a defensive menace. He is a good defensive rebounder. He's a really good offensive rebounder. I mean, can he get pushed around for some bigger centers? Sure. But he can also expose mismatches, and I think the Celtics offense is designed to do just that. And they put him in really good positions. I mean, Porzingis could get pushed around by other centers too, and the Celtics still found a way to make him effective. I This is an upgrade. I But to your point, I don't know if the difference between them getting to the finals or not.
Yeah. Um, I think they had a weapon with Simons. And we'll see. I mean, it is what it is at this point. Vucevic is here. And the one thing about having Vucevic on the roster too, it's easier to re-sign him if you want to, and he wants to be here.
That is true.
For
That
them
is
to work
true.
something out,
Easier than Simons too in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they ended the All-Star break, Jim. 16 games over 500. Obviously, a great first half of the season. Against playoff opponents, they played really hard, and they were in most games. There weren't too many blowouts outside of here and there. They were really in every game. So looking forward to the second half. What are you looking for, and how do you think the adjustments are made as Tatum's coming back? What are things going to look like? Is it going to be, shaky? Should we expect some losses in here as they try to implement Tatum into this team? How do you see things working out?
Well, yeah, I guess we start with Tatum, and I'm going to start with that conversation, and then kind of move into the second half conversation from there. Like, I wasn't sure if the Vucevic move was a sign that he was coming back. The fact that he's now practiced with Maine, I think all but assures he's coming back. I think the Vucevic move is now a sign that he's coming back. I know you said him and Simons would be good together. I have no doubt. I think we have a lot of evidence with this type of offensive center, how well that works with Tatum, and especially with a center that can facilitate and move the ball from the
Mhm.
top of the circle and the post. So I I think that's really good signs that he will be back, and I kind of expect that he's going to be back. And that's my prediction. It's going to be that first home game after the West Coast trip against the Nets on the 27th of this month. Informed speculation, I would call it, just a guess. But I so what does that mean? What's my expectations? Well, my expectations for the team is much different than it was on October 1st. I expect this team to compete to get to the conference finals and have a chance to get to the championship, to the NBA finals. I wouldn't put them as the favorites to get there. I think they're probably slightly behind Detroit, and either slightly behind or on even footing with Cleveland and New York. But right there, right there, as good a shot as anybody. And they have, I know they lost a lot of experience, but they still have a ton of experience in these big moments and big games. Um, and what will it look like with Tatum coming back, Mike? That's kind of the unknown, right? It's the unknown of how they incorporate him back into this, when he will be physically ready. But if he's able to ramp up and get to 85, 90% of himself, he's still the second best player on the Celtics, and he'd still be the first or second best player on most playoff teams. And you'd have a real shot at doing some damage. I don't think it's going to be difficult to incorporate him into this offense. I think, especially giving him minutes with second unit will really help that unit even take off more.
Mhm.
You'd be kind of replacing Shireman's minutes and Hugo's and Jordan Walls with Jayson Tatum's. I mean, it's a pretty nice upgrade. So I think they're going to be in really good position. I'm sure there'll be some bumps in the road with the transition of bringing in a new player, but it's a new player that has been around all season, has played with most of these guys before. So I kind of find this concern of incorporating him back in as being difficult,
Might be
a
difficult
little
for
bit
him.
overblown, but yeah,
Yeah, I
probably
think it
most
might be.
difficult for him. Yeah, probably
Yeah,
most difficult for him.
I think it might be most difficult for him because he's going to have to find his way. And he may come off the bench first to kind of settle him in, which would be nice because he would come off the bench with Pritchard and Vucevic. And those are two guys that he would play really well with on the offensive end with the way they're set up right now, right? So what a bench unit for when he first comes back. My God.
And he kind of
Those,
cleans up some of Vucevic's defensive liabilities too, if Tatum's back to close to where he was.
I people are comparing other players to him, like that kid in Miami, Mitchell, that came back. That guy only plays 17 minutes a night. Jayson Tatum plays, 38 to 40 a night. And
Yeah.
it's I just if he's not, I just hope they're not rushing him back. That's all. We can't afford that. The Celtics can't afford for him to have that re-injured or turn into hamstring injuries. That's the only thing. And from all they're saying, he looks great. So, and that's the other part of it. If he looks great and he's ready to come back, why wait for the home? Why wait for a home celebration? Why not ease him in 10, 15 minutes a game on this road trip? If he's ready, let's go. I don't see why we would
Well,
wait any.
he said he wanted his first game to be at home, so I'm going off of that, and
Yeah.
he's
Which
earned the
I
right.
don't,
Uh,
why is it his choice? Like if he's ready, like it's
I
time
think
to play.
he's earned the right to have it be his choice to get back in the shape that he is and work his way. And
I don't think it's about being in shape for the game at home. I think it's about celebrating Jayson Tatum.
I think he wants to celebrate the moment of returning. And if I'm working for the team, that's okay by me. I don't understand why it's a big deal to wait 4 or 5 extra games. But
I think
I,
the like, yeah, I mean, just you want to get as much time in here as possible to ramp him up as to be the best possible player for the playoffs. But that's besides the point. One thing that, I mean, if Tatum is coming back, that means he's healthy, right? He's ready to play. And last postseason, I think the last two postseasons, um, offensively, the shooting hasn't been great. So I think he has some questions to answer going into this postseason as far as, especially after last year. It wasn't a great end of the year for him with his play, and I think eyes are going to be on him as far as his performance and being the guy in those moments, especially with the way Jaylen Brown's playing right now. Um, I think there's a little bit of pressure on Tatum to perform better in the playoffs moving forward here with this team. And I found Brown's comments really interesting after the game the other night. They asked him about the Detroit and Charlotte fight. And what Brown said is that he wished he had a little bit more of that here in Boston. And not so much fighting, but I think this team still struggles against physicality. This team still struggles against big teams like Detroit in New York. They showed up in that Detroit game and they played really hard. So that was promising. But one thing that concerns me going into the playoffs is this team ready for physical basketball? Are they going to be ready to be pushed around? Because last year they weren't. Last year they got pushed around and they didn't really respond. So when New York went on runs in that series last year, Boston just completely shut down, blowing those leads and losing at home. And then that last game when they got blown out, um, those are things I'm looking at this year when we're in the playoffs. Is this team is this team physically strong enough to win?
so there's a lot that you said, so I'll just try to go point by point. First, I don't think there's any worry about him re-injuring or else he wouldn't be coming back. And when you read from Achilles doctors, they have said that the biggest hurdle is really that mental hurdle. And it's kind
Mhm.
of injuries in other spots, like your other leg or whatever, because you're favoring it. So that's a part. But the injury itself, um, it should be strong enough and good to go when you read what these doctors have to say. So, and his timeline, as it's been very well documented, is on time because of the stroke of luck he had with his injury, and the doctor that can perform the surgery was in New York that day. So he's coming back fast, but he's kind of coming back fast on the timeline that is somewhat expected when you read on some of these Achilles experts. So that I don't think that's a huge concern. It's a mental part, and that's what I kind of appreciated in Tatum's comments recently when he talked, and it echoed what Mazzulla said on the radio when he talked about he was being vulnerable, and that's I think we kind of said that in the last pod. There was just a guy that is going through a point in his rehab when he's unsure of himself, and I think Tatum's a sensitive guy, and I think that's what came across.
Yeah, and honesty is kind of refreshing.
It is. We want them to be
Yeah,
honest, and when they are, we kill them. And I don't
yeah,
think it was anything to kill them over. That's why it's
yeah.
you wait and see what happens. As far as what he has to prove in the playoffs, I mean, it's tough to even get there yet because we got to see how this, you know, he. So
How he
they're
looks.
coming back from
Yeah,
the injury. Now there's coming back to the speed of NBA play and coming back and getting into NBA shape because I don't care what he's been doing in rehab. I don't care that he's been practicing Maine. There's levels to this, and there is the step from where he is now to the speed and the shape that these guys are at and competing is pretty significant. He hasn't played an NBA game in anger since May. So how long is this going to take and how long does it take to incorporate? I mean, there's a possibility it could be rough. Like it really there's a possibility. And so what does that mean for the playoffs? Do we really do we grade him on a curve this year because it's different circumstances? Michael Jordan's first playoff back from his 2 year absence from the NBA was rough as shit, if you remember. He's the one that got pickpocketed to get them eliminated, and then of
that's
course he
right.
was fantastic. So this ramp up is going to be interesting, and how it works and how he looks. That's what you need to watch. So, um, and he did have an unfortunate first three games in the Knicks series. He was exceptional against Orlando, and obviously that game four, he was having an all-time performance when he blew his Achilles. So, he's also had plenty of great playoff performances and a lot of track record here. So I don't know what exactly he has to prove, but I'm not so sure it's this year. I think if they get to the playoffs, this is going to be Brown's team, and the pressure is going to be more on him than I think in Tatum in some ways to be the lead dog here for the first time in his career in the playoffs. Um, Unless Tatum comes back and he's Tatum and maybe they're
Yeah.
sharing that role, but I think that's probably asking a lot. As far as the physicality of this team, you're right. I I think there's certainly some question marks. Their young team beyond Brown and Tatum and White, Pritchett, I guess, but Pritchett's a smaller guy. Hauser has certainly improved and has stood up much better to physicality this season than he has ever in his career. He's actually been really impressive defensively, moving his feet.
Really has.
Yeah, but the other guys, it's a question mark, and that includes guys like Cater and Walsh, and when they get into these moments, and
Oh,
the
can
bigger
I interrupt
physical
you
players.
there?
Yeah,
I think the physicality still bothers Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. I think, they kind of coasted the year we won the NBA Finals, and they won the Finals. I'll
no,
give
they
them
didn't
credit.
coast. Yeah, but
It- um,
they dominated. I think that's a fair way to say it. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, Golden State, the physicality, Orlando, the physicality. Really, the offense was ugly against Orlando. Um,
I thought
I'm
Tatum
interested.
responded excellent to the Orlando physicality. I thought he was the best player on the court by a mile, except for
Uh,
he missed a game, but beyond that,
yeah,
he was outstanding in that series.
yeah, but I mean,
The
in
Knicks
general,
physicality slowed him down.
I think teams go into series against the Celtics and say we can push this team around and we can get in their head. And I think I'm interested to see this postseason, how they respond because the Knicks embarrassed them. The Knicks embarrassed them last year.
Yeah, I think it's different teams, so they play a little bit different, and
That's true.
they don't have the experience of Holiday was hurt last year, so that certainly hurt them. But they they didn't have the depth. Well, the depth at center even got chipped away at with Porzingis not being available. But you had Horford, you had Holiday, you had these guys that physicality really didn't bother, and now you have a bunch of new younger guys. And it's going to be a learning experience. So how they react to that is really an unknown.
Mhm.
I think there's going to be moments that's going to look rough. Is my guess. How Vucevic reacts to that is a complete unknown. He hasn't been in the playoffs he's 35 years old and really hasn't been in his entire career,
I
other than
know.
the annual play-in dance that the Bulls do every season. So I think it's a real concern. Look, I think it's a real concern to see, who of that group might step up, but you got a bunch of guys with experience there too, and have been through it, have we can say what we want about the physicality being in question, but they only have not made the Eastern Conference Finals once in the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
it hasn't bothered them so much where they've just completely cracked over their time here. Um, so we'll see, we'll see. I think every team in the East has real question marks going into the playoffs.
It is
Every team in the East has real question marks. And look, in the West, it's got a lot of good teams, but even there's question marks popping up there. But every
oh,
team in
don't
the
even
East
get me
is wide
started on
open.
some of those frauds out west.
What's that?
Um, there's some real frauds out west right now, I think. The Rockets in particular. But
Well, look,
um,
The Thunder has just set the record for most losses by 10-point favorites over the last 30 years. And
yeah.
we're only at the All-Star break.
But with the Eastern Conference, Jim, I think there's a ton of parity right now. Um, I think Detroit's physical and Detroit is scary, but they're beatable, obviously. Cade Cunningham is a matchup nightmare. But I do think they're beatable.
I think that
Um,
physicality is stupid at times too. Like what Durant did in that game was that hurt your team. Like I don't. That isn't tough. That's just being selfish and stupid. I like physicality is going
I
after
love I
hard
love
for a
how
rebound, knocking heads a little bit. But sometimes it like is that going to cost them in the playoffs? I look at that as a team that's immature to me.
it could, but I think the NBA kind of misses it too. Um, but great response by Charlotte coming back the
Big
next
time.
night in the back to back and winning. But you look at the East, starting with Detroit and Boston and New York. I always look at Boston and New York kind of tied for that 2 seed, right? And then you have the Cavs right there now, maybe a game and a half, 2 games back.
Yeah.
Then after that, it's like that Philly Toronto bunch.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think it's Orlando and Charlotte, right? Those are probably like that's going to be the playoff picture there. I don't really see an easy round in the playoffs right now for any of these teams. Like I could see upsets happening with the way some of these lower seeds are underperforming and going into the season it was the East is terrible. I don't think the East is terrible. I think we're in for a really exciting playoffs. I think there's a lot of good teams out East right now.
It's very mediocre, Mike. Like I think that's when you start saying there's not an easy matchup for any of these teams. That's another way of saying where it's pretty mediocre. Like I don't think this is like there's not a great team.
No,
And,
they're
you can argue like what's a really very good team that's in the East right now. Maybe Detroit and Boston, based on the advanced stats, would tell you that those are two very good teams. The New York Knicks is kind of right there on the fringe of being a
well
very
the
good
way the
team.
Knicks are playing right now.
Yeah. So like
Yeah,
those
they're
would be the three teams that have been very good. But the Cavs, I know they're right there. They really haven't been a very good team for most of this season.
yeah,
Maybe
haven't
they
they won
will.
10 of 11 though?
Maybe they will. Yeah, as this continues to go on. But you need to show that beyond a 10 and 11 spurt. You have to show that you can consistently be that. And they haven't. So maybe, but they're certainly capable. They have before.
Yep.
Um, so the flip side to that coin, though, for the Celtics is maybe you say there's not an easy series for them, but there's
But
not a
they're all
series.
winnable.
There's
They're
not a
all
series that,
winnable.
yeah, there's not one that scares you. There's nobody there. Like if you got Charlotte or Orlando in the first round, you feel like you're going to beat them. I think,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you get Philly in the first round, you feel like you're going to beat them. Um, so, it's
It's
in,
tough. Philly's tough. Got some talent there, but we would
yeah,
certainly
but
beat them.
I mean, loser is in that DNA on that team. Um,
I am rooting so hard for Charlotte. Do you watch him at all
did
with these
they?
three
Can you
picks?
believe they traded McCain? By the way,
Oh, Philly. I know. And he put up I think he put up 13 in his first game on
unbelievable
OKC.
that they
Did you
traded
see the
him.
kid come back from cancer
Yeah, that was
on
cool. Yeah,
OKC?
yeah. I can't believe they traded him. Which is just like that's a loser DNA move.
What are
It's a
you doing
loser
that for?
the tax.
Oh, is that why they made that move?
Yeah.
That's going to
So
cost them.
it sure is. So yeah, I think it's wide open. There's a chance, Mike. There's a chance somehow they get to the finals, which um, would just be unbelievable considering where we thought this might be a play-in team or the fifth, sixth, or seventh seed, and where
Where
they're
were we?
sitting right now. So I don't
Yeah.
couldn't be happier with things.
Yeah, I'm excited for the second half of the year. I mean, their schedule this second half is pretty tough. There's going to be a lot of good games on, starting with this West Coast trip, which I feel like they're always on a West Coast trip right after the All Star game, like
Yeah, that's
every
like kind
season.
of every season. Yeah, not the
Yeah, I
worst
don't.
time to have it actually because you're rested.
Yeah,
Like it's really not the worst time to have
it
it.
kind of sucks too, though, because the Knicks got to play Golden State twice this year without Steph Curry, without Al Horford, without Draymond Green, and like blew them up by like 40. And of course, we're gonna go into Golden State, and Steph Curry's probably gonna drop like 50 fucking points.
I mean, it's the way the schedule. I mean, we face the Lakers without Luca. Like I don't know. It's just kind of the
Yeah,
way the schedule breaks sometimes.
also a problem with the league.
Yeah, yeah.
Last night you tune in, you got Milwaukee and OKC, no SGA, no what's the other kid's name there? Williams. No Giannis just because they're not playing him. You turn on the Lakers game, no Luca. Like, this is a problem in the league. And you got the Wizards trade for 2 guys, and they're just not going to play for the rest of the season so we can tank.
Yeah.
There is every single night guys not playing across the league, and it's a problem.
Yeah, it's
It's
been
a
a problem for
bad
years.
product.
It's been a problem for years. Yeah, no, it's not good. It's not helpful. Um, Mike, any closing thoughts before we go, or anything you want to hit that we haven't hit?
Yeah, the NBA is going to be looking at 2 expansion teams coming to the league, talking about Seattle and Vegas as the possible spots. So if you were Brad Stevens, who are the 8 players you're protecting this summer in the draft?
um, I guess you go Tatum, Brown, White. Even though White's salary and age,
You
maybe you're
protect White.
thinking about it, but you protect him. Um, Kada for sure. Sam Hauser, I still would because of, you get something for him a trade, even if you were thinking about moving off of him. So that's 5, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think Hugo's a definite. I think there's real potential there. So there's 6. Pritchard's contract is you got to keep, so that's
Keep
7.
that.
And then I think it then comes down to either like Jordan Walsh or Shyman, and I'd lean Shyman. I just think Hugo and Jordan Walsh's skill set is a little bit close. Hugo's probably a little more. I mean, Jordan Walsh is a little more refined, but I think Hugo has a much higher ceiling. And then I just think Shireman, of all the guys we just said, his game's just different. He's a really good rebounder for his size. He's offensively, you can put the ball in his hands. I know he can't really be a point guard, but he can handle the rock, and he can certainly play make. Of all the guys outside of Tatum, Brown, White, and Pritchard, if you're looking for your next playmaker, it's him. So
Yeah.
he'd probably be that guy that I would protect.
Yeah, I think I put Hauser out there. I like Shireman and Walsh's contracts. I mean, you see flashes with Walsh against Chicago. You saw a guy who was taking it to the rim now and finishing at the rim as well. And I feel like when he comes in and he defends people, he just puts them on an island. Like totally takes them away. And I wonder if a team would even take Hauser when because you only can pick one player per team. So once a team picks a Celtics player, the Celtics are off the board. So that means you can draft no more Celtic players. And
Yeah.
I just look, does the team want to take a guy at Hauser's age, paying him 10
And
million a
we
year?
haven't even talked about Williams either, by the way. As a young developed pick, that's a guy you have to think about and consider as well too. Like
And
seriously
if I'm
consider.
drafting a team, I draft Amari Williams over Sam Hauser.
Well,
If I'm
here's
in,
why Sam Hauser would probably might get selected though, is for the same reason the Celtics would probably want to protect him. That contract at 17 million, yeah, it's higher, but it's really movable. And he has a lot of value as a move shooter, and he's a much better defender than we think. And I think there's probably a year on it or whatever. So if the Celtics wanted to make a bigger move, you can't do it with Williams or Jordan Walsh's contract
no, you can't.
because it doesn't add up. So for the Celtics, he like that number probably has more value at 17 million than Jordan Walsh's has at 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's funny. At the beginning of the offseason, I wanted them to cut Jordan Walsh. Now I'm talking about protecting him in a draft.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, it was a good pod. Second half of the season's coming up. All-Star break. Don't care about the All-Star game. A team to watch in the league. Just keep watching Charlotte. I'm telling you,
Yeah. They're
they are
coming,
good.
aren't they? They're coming.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were the best team in the league in January. One of the best, anyways. So,
they
yeah.
had 3 guys against Atlanta combined for 24 threes between Knipple, Miller, and Lonzo Ball. Or
Yeah.
is it Melo Ball? I get
Even
the
Graham
two.
Williams is playing okay for them right now.
He started to pick up his game a little bit recently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So exciting team. I mean, but I don't know how far. They're not going to go far, but yeah.
No, they're not. And it will be,
Not this year.
I figure it'll be Lonzo Ball that will cost them. So, um, all right.
Probably.
I'll see it.
See ya. All right, good.
I was walking with my eyes Ah,